I'm going to talk to you today about natural dye, and you are going to create some natural dye swatch samples. So there is evidence of pigment being used in cave paintings dating back to 15,000 BC. This isn't obviously the first time that it would have been used, but that's the first time we've got evidence of it. Now, natural pigments are usually used with water and oil to decorate skin, jewellery and clothing traditionally. So now around 90% of clothing is dyed synthetically using chemical dyes, but before the 1850s, when synthetic dye was introduced during the Industrial Revolution, natural dyes and natural pigment would have been used for that purpose. So during the 1850s, during the Industrial Revolution, synthetic dye was introduced because it's cost effective, readily available and easy to apply in large amounts. Before then, natural dyes would have been used, and the reason why we add colour to clothing and fabric is to add colour to make it aesthetically pleasing and appealing. So before then, natural products would have been used such as vegetables, plants, trees, even insects, and fruit and berries would have been used to stain fabric, and that's what you're going to do today with a mixture of different materials. So I have laid out my work surface already. I've got a plastic bag underneath with newspaper on top. So the newspaper will absorb the liquid coming out of the fabric, but it will leak through. So you want a layer of plastic underneath so it doesn't go onto your work surfaces. I've got a variety of different kitchen things you can find in your kitchen that means that you'll be able to stain fabric very easily. So I've got berry tea, green tea, coffee, I've got paprika, turmeric and cumin. Now all I'm doing, I've got mugs, and I like to use mugs because you can hold on to the handle and it keeps you away from that warm water. I'm just using warm water out of the tap, pouring it about halfway into the mug, and then either popping in a couple of bags, tea bags if it's one of the teas, or with the spices I'm using approximately a tablespoon and a half. So you just pop a tablespoon and a half approximately into your mug and give it a mix. Be aware that things like coffee will completely dissolve, but with the spices, because they don't completely dissolve within water, you will still be left with a powdery residue. All you'll need to do is just wait for that to dry off on the fabric, and then you can just hold it over a bit and shake off that residue, the powder, and that will be gone. So a tablespoon, sorry, and a bit, it's about a tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoons in there to make it a nice deep colour. And then what you're going to do is you're going to cut your fabric samples. So you want swatches of different fabrics for you to try with this experiment. You will need to either use, make sure you're wearing old clothes or you've got an apron on. And I'm going to use gloves just to make sure that I don't get any of that on my skin. Make sure obviously you're not using any ingredients that you're allergic to. And then what I'm going to do is I have already cut out my fabric samples. So I've got a few different fabric samples to try. I have got a cotton t-shirt fabric. So that is obviously a knitted fabric that's created with looped fibres, and that means that it has stretch. I've also got a woven cotton fabric. I thought it'd be interesting to see if the dye absorbed into the fabric anymore or stained the fabric anymore, because it's the same fibre that is used. It's cotton, but it's woven, so it does not have any stretch. So it'd be interesting to see if the colour saturates into that fabric anymore. I've got a velvet fabric. Velvet has a pile, which means it is soft on the top. That is a synthetic. I've got a synthetic velvet, and that is a polyester mix. I've also got another natural fabric, which I don't expect you to have necessarily lying around, and I've got a natural silk as well. That's another natural fibre. So I've got 3 natural fibres, 2 that are the same, but they have been constructed in a different way. One is the knit construction, so it's got stretch. One is woven. It'd be interesting to see if the colour stain saturates any more or less, dependent on how the fabric has been constructed. You could also try pre-printed fabrics and then and pre-coloured fabrics. So you'll see if you've got like a floral printed fabric, you'll see the different colour tones change dependent on the fabric that you're using. That could be quite interesting to use as well. Just depends on what you've got at home and what you're okay with cutting up. So you'll need to cut quite a few swatches. You'll need to cut 4 pieces of each fabric for each stain that you're using. So I've got 4 pieces of the velvet in front of me. I've got 4 pieces of the woven cotton, 4 pieces of the jersey cotton, and 4 pieces of silk as well. That is just for one colour only. What I've also done is I have cut up a piece of A3 paper and I've written down which one I'm going to be using. So I'm going to start with berry. And I'm going to lay them out ready to go. So I've got the times on there as well. So for your dye saturation challenge, the colour saturation challenge, basically you're seeing how much colour that fabric can absorb before it reaches its ultimate saturation, so it's maximum saturation. It can't possibly take on any more colour. And we're going to do it in time. So with the berry tea, which I've got first, I've already got that pre-mixed and pre-made up. I have got, you can see it's very, very reddy pinkish in there. I've got 2 tea bags in there, and I'll leave the tea bags in there. The longer you leave the tea bags in, therefore the more the water absorbs that colour. And I'm going to put all 4 of one of my fabric types in there together. So I'm going to start off with my woven cotton. I'm just going to drop them all in together. At this point, I would recommend, if you've got gloves, great. If you haven't, then you can just use a fork. So the first one, or the first piece of cotton, is going to come out after 10 seconds. So you want to get all this ready first. Your timings are 10 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes and 20 minutes for each one. So get that written down on your strips of paper. So the first one's going to come out. We've had about 10 seconds and you can see how that has absorbed that colour already. So I've got berry tea, 10 seconds. I am going to wait 2 minutes and then I'm going to take out the next one, 5 minutes, take out the next one, 20 minutes and take out my final one. So I've still got about 4 minutes left. I've still got about another minute left before I need to take out my next one of the cotton. And that's what I'll do until I have completed all of these. Now you will notice that you have got you'll be creating basically lots of different fabric samples. So what the other thing that you could do, so this one's had 2 minutes now, I'm just going to take that out, is you could drop in all 4 for the one that's going to be in for 10 seconds, and then all 4 and then leave it 2 minutes, then all 4 and leave it for 5 minutes, and all 4 and leave it for 20 minutes, and that will take you up to the full hour. So that's what I'll do next, I think. So with my fabric, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the 3 remaining. So I've got 1 velvet, I have got 1 cotton jersey, and I have got 1 silk. Tricky with the gloves on. Yes, I've got 1 of each. I'm going to drop them in together. So 1 velvet, 1 cotton jersey and 1 silk. I'm going to drop them in together at the same time. I'm going to count my 10 seconds and I'm going to take all 3 out. Then I'm going to put the other, well, it'll be 4 in total, in together. I will leave it for 2 minutes, then take all 4 out. And you can do that with all of your dyes simultaneously because it's all in for the same time. So I have had them in now for 10 seconds. So I'm going to take those out and you can see the difference in colour. Okay, and I'll put them where it says berry tea, 10 seconds to dry. Okay, now I will drop in another 3 and I'll leave them for 2 minutes and so on and so forth until I've done them all. Now what I would do is do a few at a time. So I've done berry tea for my 10 seconds now. I'll take my green tea and the coffee and I'll take 1 of each and I'll create little bundles for both. So I've got one jersey fabric, one of the velvet fabric, and one of the silk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop them into each of the cups. So I've now got 3 going into my green tea, 3 going into my coffee at the same time. Then I'm going to leave that just 10 seconds and take them out and put them in the relevant places. So I'll have 3 on coffee, I'll have 3 on green tea, 10 seconds and done. I will do it again for my 2 minutes, do it again for my 5 minutes until I have filled out all of my sheets. So just to recap, that is, you're leaving it for 4 different time lengths. 10 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes and 20 minutes, and you'll see the difference in that colour saturation, and you'll see the difference in the type of fabric, the colour saturation in the different fabric as well. Thank you.